Red Bottle, Part 4, other parts down below. The journey home after dropping off Kelly, a young woman in distress, was filled with a heavy heart. Anticipating my wife's reaction, I braced myself. As I entered the house through the kitchen, Wendy was there, dressed elegantly. Her hopeful gaze met mine, and I could only respond with a silent gesture of understanding. "You look lovely," I remarked, noting her effort as if for a special occasion. "Do you have plans tonight?" She offered a gentle smile. "I need to step out for a bit. It's part of us moving forward. I'm asking for your trust, even though I might not fully deserve it." Her request was significant, especially after recent events. Watching her anxious expression, I realized that trusting her was the only way forward. If not, I might as well give up. It was her choice to make. Embracing her, I reassured, "I trust you. I won't spend my life doubting you. Just remember the importance of our trust." She nodded, gratefully. "Thank you. I won't let you down." After she left, I settled in with a beer and some Monday night football. With Jeannie safely in her playpen, my thoughts drifted between my wife's activities, Kelly's situation, and dealing with those who had wronged us. During halftime, I took a moment to order some supplies online for some plans I had in mind. Wendy returned during the fourth quarter, seeming unusually upbeat. "How did it go?" I asked, curious about her evening. "It was productive. I'll need a bit more time before I can explain everything." "How's the game going?" "Not too bad," I replied to her. "I was hoping you'd find it dull. Maybe then I could offer a more enjoyable alternative," she hinted playfully. I couldn't help but grin. "That sounds like a tempting offer." She gently lifted Jeannie from her play area. "Let me just feed her and get her settled for the night. Then, we can have our own fun." We watched the game until halfway through the fourth quarter, then she stood up. Just a few minutes, and then joined me in the bedroom. After a few more moments of the game, which was winding down, I turned off the TV and made sure the house was secure. In the bedroom, Wendy was waiting in one of her new outfits. She helped me get comfortable, and we shared a playful and affectionate moment. Her energy was different from the previous night, more spirited and lively. She prepared us both, her enthusiasm clear. Then, she suggested a change in our usual routine. "Let's switch things up tonight," she said with a smile. Our time together was passionate and intense, exploring different ways to connect and express our love. We were fully immersed in the moment, each focused on the other's enjoyment. Towards the end, Wendy's excitement was palpable. "I need you closer, please," she urged. I was more than willing to meet her request, and we continued with renewed vigor. Our connection deepened, and soon we were both reaching a point of intense satisfaction. Afterward, she playfully suggested a new idea for our future moments together. "How about we mix things up a bit next time?" she proposed with a knowing grin. I smiled back, sharing a tender kiss with her. "Sounds like you're ready for round 2. "Let me show you," she said playfully, and gently nudged me back, her actions filled with affection and anticipation. This time, our connection was tender and unhurried. I cherished every moment, ensuring our closeness was felt deeply. She embraced me warmly afterward. "This is what I love," she whispered. "Feeling so connected to you." I responded with a slow, loving kiss. "It's just as incredible for me," I assured her. She then mused about making this a regular part of our intimacy. "What do you think about doing this more often?" she asked with a hint of excitement. "I think they would be wonderful," I replied with a smile. She fetched a washcloth, surprisingly using it for a new kind of affection that we hadn't explored before. It was unexpected, and I expressed my surprise. "I thought this wasn't your preference." "I've changed my mind," she admitted with a smile. "I've come to appreciate it. I enjoy it now, especially taking care of you afterward. I hope that's okay with you." I laughed warmly. "I have no objections at all." After a moment of tenderness, she joined me again. "Kelly and I had a conversation about this. I realized I've been missing out on so much. Our relationship is wonderful, but I want it to be even more fulfilling. Don't hesitate to suggest anything new you'd like to try. I'm open to exploring." I asked her the same, curious about her desires. "And you, anything you'd like to try?" She replied with sincerity, expressing her newfound fondness for our intimate moments. "I've discovered what I enjoy the most. I'm here to make sure we're both happy." I assured her of my willingness to listen and try new things. "I'm open to your suggestions too." We held each other closely, wondering why we hadn't discussed this aspect of our relationship earlier. "I suppose we just didn't think it was necessary," I pondered. She agreed, expressing contentment with our intimacy. "I'm really happy with us. I hope you are too." I reassured her of my love and happiness. "I am. I love you. Maybe we just got a bit off track. I regret if that contributed to past issues." Our conversation marked a new chapter of openness and exploration in our relationship, bringing us closer than ever. She dismissed the idea. "No, it wasn't really about that. I was just making poor choices, influenced by bad advice. I didn't truly want or need what I did. Being drunk isn't a good excuse, and I won't let that happen again. If there's ever an issue, I'll come to you first." "That's a promise." "Same here," I agreed. We lay in silence for a while. I found myself unable to sleep, my mind replaying the image of Kelly in a vulnerable situation. Wendy's voice broke the silence. "Are you thinking about her?" Without hesitation, I replied, yes, I just hope she's safe. Me too. The following days were fairly smooth. Wendy went out again on Tuesday and seemed preoccupied with phone calls. I asked if Kelly had been in touch, but she said no. My online orders arrived, and Wendy gave me my space without prying. While she seemed more relaxed, I could tell she was still making extra efforts in the evenings, as if trying to make up for something. I longed for the Wendy I knew and loved, not someone burdened with guilt and fear. I wanted her to understand that my love was unwavering, that she didn't need to constantly try to compensate by cooking my favorite meals, tidying up, or being overly attentive. To show my affection, I left her a single rose without a special occasion, a thoughtful note in her purse, and her favorite perfume as a surprise. When Wendy came home, she was incredibly enthusiastic, and I was more than happy to share in her energy. Her smile was bright as she fell asleep in my embrace. By Thursday, her joy was palpable when she returned from her evening out. We continued to connect deeply each day. I even noticed a new outfit she'd wear each night, though on Thursday, my eagerness resulted in accidentally tearing her underwear. She just laughed it off, suggesting a shopping trip for new ones. It was almost 1 a.m. when the phone rang, jolting us awake. I felt a surge of concern, hoping that our families were okay. I answered the phone. Hello. A tense voice came through. John, Kelly, is that you? Are you okay? I quickly sat up in bed, concern evident in my voice. Wendy also sat up, looking at me with worry. I'm in trouble. I've been arrested. Could you help me with bail? I promise I'll repay you. Where are you right now? She explained her location and mentioned a $500 fine as a first-time offender, with the possibility of facing up to 90 days in jail. I'm on my way. Don't agree to anything or sign any papers until I get there. Thank you, John. I didn't know who else to call. It's okay, just hang in there. I'm coming. As I dressed, I preempted Wendy's questions. She's been arrested. I need to go help her out. Bring her back here, Wendy said. I nodded in agreement. I'll return as soon as possible. In the car, I phoned my lawyer and friend, Jim Friedland. After a brief scolding for the late call, he recommended a law firm experienced in handling such cases. It's for a friend of the family, I clarified. Got it. David's firm is excellent. Good luck. After hanging up, I called the firm Jim recommended. The person on the other end was reassuring, saying they could handle the situation. I pulled over to give them my credit card information and explained how I was referred by Jim, even mentioning a partner's name from the firm. They promised to take care of everything. By the time I arrived at the jail, the legal team had arranged a deferred prosecution agreement for Kelly as a first-time offender. This meant she would undergo drug testing, perform community service, adhere to certain restrictions on her movements, and be under probation. Kelly was visibly distraught and immediately sought comfort in my arms when I arrived. It was just awful, John. So awful. There. It's going to be all right. Let's get you back to safety. She remained silent during the drive back to my house, bypassing her own apartment. I briefed her on the terms of her release, and she expressed her gratitude multiple times. I didn't pry into the details of her trouble, and she didn't volunteer any information. Our conversation shifted to how Wendy and Jeannie were doing, and I found myself sharing more about our recent experiences, including Wendy's outings and even some aspects of our relationship. Do you really trust her? Kelly inquired. Yes, I do. It's not without its challenges, but I'm committed to it, I admitted. If she's been out like this a few times, it might be wrapping up soon. Things are good between you two. Better than they've ever been, I replied, just as her stomach growled, prompting a laugh from both of us. She playfully protested, Hey, it's not funny. It's nearly 3 a.m. I know. Let's stop by the 24-hour Burger King. We might not have enough at home to satisfy your hunger, especially if you're as hungry as last time. She smiled. That's fine. I usually don't eat before I go out. There's a McDonald's I sometimes visit afterwards. Burger King works for you then. Absolutely. She enjoyed a Whopper and fries on the last leg of our drive. As we arrived home, she chuckled. You always take such good care of me. I would have just gotten a small meal for myself. I teased her lightly, nothing but the best for you. Upon entering the house, she seemed a bit anxious. Let's go see Wendy. She talks about you often and is really concerned. Kelly brushed off the concern lightly. She doesn't need to worry about me. I can handle myself. We both care about you, I reassured her. Say a quick hello, and then you can relax with a bath and get some rest. Kelly accompanied me to the bedroom, where Wendy was already awake. On seeing Kelly, Wendy immediately embraced her, and they both were overcome with emotion, shedding tears together. I left them to their moment as they retreated to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Jeannie was stirring a bit, but we were trying to encourage her to sleep through the night, so I let her be. She didn't escalate into a full cry, which was a relief. Those moments were always tough for me. Despite Wendy's advice to let herself soothe, it was hard not to want to comfort her. After a while, the girls emerged, and I found myself being nudged awake to make room in the bed. Kelly lay between Wendy and me, needing the comfort and closeness after her ordeal. Exhausted, I wrapped my arm around her, whispering, I'm glad you're safe, Angel, and gently kissed her cheek before drifting off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to an affectionate start from Wendy, with Kelly still asleep beside me, her arm draped over me. It was an unexpectedly pleasant way to wake up. Kelly stirred awake during this moment and looked over with a light-hearted comment. "Looks like someone's having a good morning." I replied with a smile, "Seems like I am." Kelly apologized for the trouble she had caused, and I responded with a tender kiss. The affectionate moment continued as Wendy brought me to a blissful state. Afterward, there was a bit of a playful cleanup needed. Wendy, with a laugh, suggested Kelly help out, making light of the situation. Kelly joined in the lighthearted mood, playfully moving down the bed and sharing a cheeky moment with Wendy. They both took care of the situation with surprising enthusiasm, even sharing a laugh at how energetic I seemed to be. Wendy playfully teased, "What's gotten into you? Feeling like a teenager again?" I couldn't help but feel incredibly fortunate. "No, just a very lucky man," I replied, still caught up in the warmth of the moment. She smiled and put on her robe, while Kelly continued with gentle affection. Wendy observed for a moment before speaking up. "I'll go start on breakfast. I'll leave this to you." Kelly paused and looked unsure. "Oh, I don't think I should," she said hesitantly. Wendy responded playfully, "You played a part in this situation. It's only fair you help out. I've got my hands full with our little one and breakfast. You've got about 15 minutes before he needs to get ready." She left the room, not waiting for a response. Kelly looked at me with uncertainty. "John," I laughed lightly. "Well, this was unexpected." She glanced down, hesitating before her hand gently made contact. "I'm not sure if I should," she murmured. "You might want to decide quickly. Time is ticking." She met my gaze, then positioned herself more comfortably. "Are you sure about this? Just go ahead," I encouraged her. She took her time, focusing on my skin and thighs with gentle kisses. She was attentive, taking care in her actions and occasionally glancing up at me with a slight smile. She spent the first 10 minutes playfully teasing, then dedicated the last 5 minutes to showing her skill, bringing me to a point of intense satisfaction right on time. With a satisfied smile and a glance at the clock, she stood up and quietly left the room. After completing my morning routine and dressing for the day, I joined Wendy and Kelly in the kitchen. They were in good spirits, chatting and laughing. Both greeted me warmly with a hug and a kiss. Wendy teased, "So, how's your morning been?" "Couldn't be better," I replied with a smile. Wendy's grin widened. "I think my morning was quite delightful too, thanks to our friend here." Kelly joined in the laughter. "It's been a good morning all around." I enjoyed breakfast in a relaxed atmosphere, with Kelly and Wendy both casually dressed. My daughter was in the corner, cooing and making adorable baby sounds, which made it difficult to focus on my bacon and egg sandwich. "We're planning to run some errands today," Wendy mentioned. "I think I'll drop Jeannie off at my mom's. Will you be back from work on time?" "I'll make sure of it," I assured her. Wendy chuckled. "Is that because of our lovely guest here?" "It's because I have the most amazing wife. I don't want to miss any time I can spend with you." She stood up to kiss me. "Flattery will get you everywhere," she joked. I playfully agreed. "Absolutely, it does. And it looks like I'm in for a great evening." After a brief embrace with Kelly, I went over to Jeannie, lifted her up, and enjoyed a playful moment with her, even though she couldn't understand my words. It was a moment of pure contentment. Passing by Wendy again, she inquired, "Is there a spending limit for today?" "Just whatever the credit card allows. Enjoy yourselves and think of me." She laughed. "I'll be thinking of you the entire time." The day at work proceeded as usual until around 3:30 p.m. That's when Paul entered my office, instantly causing a sense of unease. He closed the door behind him. I tensed up, trying to remain calm. "Hey, John, I just wanted to say that I always knew Tom was full of it. The things he said about Wendy were ridiculous. We all know how much she adores you." His words caught me off guard, and I couldn't help but ask, "What exactly did he say?" Paul appeared uneasy. "I assumed you were aware. It's not important now." Tom admitted he fabricated the story to get back at Wendy for turning him down a few too many times. "He mentioned he'd apologize to you. I just wanted to clear the air. I noticed you seemed a bit off since the party, and I hope it wasn't because of anything I said or did. I haven't spread any rumors, and I was certain they weren't true, especially coming from him. We're still good, right?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, we're fine. It's Tom I have an issue with for starting those ridiculous rumors." Paul sat down, visibly relieved. "Everyone knows Tom's been trying to impress Wendy, but she's never shown any interest. Yes, he had to fabricate things to save face. It just made him look more foolish, in my opinion." "I'd appreciate you bringing this up," I responded sincerely. "No problem. If someone was spreading lies about my wife, I'd want to be informed. I'd also probably have to handle it myself. I'd not only tell you but help you set things straight if that ever happened." He smiled. "Great. And if you ever need any assistance, just say the word. It's wrong to let friends be treated like that." "I'll keep that in mind, but I plan to handle this myself." Paul offered, "If you need an alibi, I'm here. I can organize a poker night you attended." I felt a wave of gratitude towards Paul. "Thank you, I might just take you up on that. We're hosting a gathering the weekend after next. Can you and Wendy make it? I'll have to check on a babysitter, but it should be fine." "Thanks." He stood up to leave. "Looking forward to it." And remember, if you need anything, give me a call first." He paused, then added jokingly, "And, just for the record, my wife Carla is the most beautiful of all. Officially, at least." I joined in the laughter. "Absolutely. Officially and unofficially, our wives are the best. Let's leave it at that." Upon arriving home, I found Kelly on the floor engaging playfully with Jeannie. She was dressed in modest shorts and a knit top, looking every bit the typical high school student. She greeted me with a smile. "Hi, handsome. You always look sharp in a suit. I think Wendy's in the bedroom." After giving Jeannie a quick kiss, I made my way to change. Wendy was busy tidying up the bed. "Starting housework a bit late, aren't we?" I joked as I removed my coat. Wendy rushed over for an affectionate hug and kiss, as if we hadn't seen each other for ages. "Welcome home, my dear husband. Have I mentioned how much I love you today?" "Not since this morning." "I love you too," I replied. "You might want to reserve judgment until you hear about our shopping spree. We've been out all day." I playfully groaned, but seeing her momentarily worried expression, I quickly smiled to reassure her. "Just kidding, don't worry." She laughed and embraced me again. "We still have everything, don't worry. It wasn't that much. And I'm sure whatever you spent is just fine." I paused for a moment, teasing her. "We don't have a new mortgage, do we?" She playfully hit my arm. "Of course not, John. You're such a tease." I kissed her tenderly. "Can't wait for tonight then." She stepped back to finish the bed. "Go ahead and get freshened up. We're having a little happy hour. I've pumped enough today, so I might indulge a bit. Jeannie's dinner is all set in the fridge. How's everything with Kelly?" "It's going well. We can chat more about it later, okay?" "Sure, whatever works for you." Wendy stood up with a cheerful demeanor, her mouth closed, humming a tune, and wearing that familiar, playful smile. I sat on the floor, engaging with my baby daughter, occasionally glancing at Kelly. She had a slightly mischievous smirk, which I found endearing. She relaxed against the couch, watching me interact with Jeannie. I was filled with anticipation for the days when she would be able to crawl and play more actively. Wendy re-entered with drinks, placing them on the table with a knowing nod in my direction, still wearing her smile. She teased Kelly in a light-hearted manner before darting out of the room. Kelly responded with a silent laugh, joining in the playful atmosphere. The playful exchange continued briefly between Wendy and Kelly, each showing a sense of camaraderie and mischief. Wendy came back with some snacks, settling Jeannie into her playpen. Both women took seats on the couch, gesturing for me to join them in the middle. They were still enjoying their little joke, sharing a laugh before finally settling down. After a few minutes of quiet and casual sipping, Wendy started a conversation. "How was your day?" I recounted my encounter with Paul at the office. "He invited us to a party next weekend. I forgot to ask if we could bring a guest, though." Wendy playfully rolled her eyes. "Typical. I'll check with them. Anything else happen?" I shared more details about my discussion with Paul, including his assurances about his trust in our relationship and his offer to support me if needed, especially in light of Tom's deceitful behavior. The conversation highlighted the strong bond and trust within our friendships and our relationship. I paused to take a sip of my drink, then curiously asked Wendy, "You wouldn't happen to know anything about this, would you?" Wendy stood up and came back with her purse. She took out a small voice recorder and a deposit slip, handing them to me. The deposit slip showed $12,000, which caught me off guard. Wendy made a surprising declaration. "You now have 2 former women of questionable profession living with you." I was puzzled and turned to look at Kelly, who kissed me on the cheek. "Could you explain a bit more?" I asked. Wendy took a deep drink, then placed her glass down. "Remember what you said that first night about the cost of my favors? I thought, if it's costing you that much, then those other guys should pay at least the same, if not more. After all, a wife should offer her husband a discount." Her revelation left me stunned. "Each night, I met a different one of them," Wendy continued. "I booked a hotel room and propositioned them for a repeat encounter. You can imagine their responses." "You met them at a hotel again?" I asked, feeling a mix of emotions. "Listen to what I'm saying," Kelly interjected, hugging me. Wendy played a bit of the recording, capturing Aaron's voice praising her skills. She then explained, "They got the worst performances I've ever given. Even worse than my first time." I reacted sharply, but Kelly's firm squeeze and warning to listen calmed me down. Wendy resumed her explanation. "After I recorded them talking about our supposed encounters, I handed them an invoice. They were confused at first, so I had to spell it out for them." Wendy recounted her strategy with a matter-of-fact tone. "I charged them $2,000 each. My husband might have paid less, but that's because he gets a husband's discount. You guys owe me $2,000 each." I was still processing everything, especially the numbers not adding up. They were hesitant initially, but I made it clear that it was better for them, and their marriages, to pay up. After receiving the money, I warned them if they talked about any of this, I would share the recordings and the proof of their payments with their wives, and you would deal with them personally. They also had to retract any stories they told to others within 24 hours. Wendy chuckled. "Jared even thought he was getting a deal and wanted to pay for another one." I was incredulous. "Is that why you have 12,000? There were just 3 of them." Kelly, finding humor in the situation, kissed my neck to calm me. Wendy explained further, of course, I didn't accept Gerard's offer. I just thanked him and declined. As for the extra money, Tom had to pay triple since he was the instigator. He also got charged an additional $1,000 for each friend he involved. He got quite upset and loud about it. She then revealed a small taser from her purse. I had to use the taser you bought. Tom was the last one I dealt with, and I used it when he got aggressive. I pretended to agree to one last encounter, but instead, I used the taser on him. I had to use it a few times to really incapacitate him. Then, I took some compromising photos of him, including one that looked particularly incriminating, though I never actually touched him. I was stunned by Wendy's bold and calculated actions. She had taken a risky situation and turned it completely to her advantage, showing a side of her I hadn't fully appreciated before. Wendy recounted her actions with a hint of vindication in her voice. He'd been a real problem for me, almost wrecking our marriage and constantly bothering me. I wanted it to end. Those large zip ties you bought were surprisingly useful. You really were prepared. Mom didn't clue you in, did she? I could only shake my head in disbelief. Wendy continued, it all worked out in the end. He started to react aggressively, so I had to use the taser again. Initially, I didn't want to, but considering everything he put me through, I figured it was justified. He was especially unhappy with the last one since I targeted a sensitive area. He kept moving around, making it difficult. I winced at the thought, and Kelly couldn't help but laugh. Wendy, you're ruthlessly brilliant. It's good to have you on our side. Wendy, amused, took another sip of her drink. He calmed down a bit after that, but he wasn't very cooperative when I had to use the makeshift deterrent. It was unpleasant, but necessary given what he'd done, especially inviting others to exploit me. I left him there, sufficiently humbled. She casually mentioned, you'll need to replace the item I used. I didn't want it after that. I was puzzled. We don't have anything like that. Well, we do now. I thought we might explore new things, remember? You said I could tell you if I wanted to try something different. I simply nodded, still trying to process everything. So, after dealing with him, I made sure to capture more evidence. He was quite cooperative by then, especially after I showed him the hunting knife you got. I think the sight of it really made an impression. I let him know how upset I was about him taking advantage of me when I was vulnerable. It's no excuse for what I did, but he definitely played a part in it. Wendy paused, taking another slow sip of her drink, reflecting on the gravity of the situation she had handled. Wendy recounted her final actions with Tom. By that time, he was more cooperative. I found a blank check in his wallet, which made things easier. I left him restrained, just to be safe, and had him write a check for the full $8,000. I made it clear that if he didn't comply, the recording, a copy of the check, and some photos would be shared with his wife and others. She showed me a photo on her camera. Not a pretty sight, right, Kelly? Kelly glanced at the photo and commented, definitely not appealing. Too much hair. Wendy playfully teased about my physique, then continued her story. So, I left Tom there, still tied up, with a means of escape just out of reach. I cashed the check today. With what you said earlier, it seems they all came clean about their lies. I love you, and we have a great relationship. I always boast about our happiness when with friends. She then stood up, removing her shorts and underwear. I think I deserve a punishment for my actions. I want you to hold me accountable, to remind me not to step out of line. If I do, I'll have a story to share with the others about the consequences. Wendy positioned herself, expecting a symbolic punishment. Don't let Kelly do it, she's still upset with me. It needs to be you. Amidst all the day's revelations, this request was perhaps the most surprising. I looked at Kelly. Could you please take Jeannie to her crib? I'd rather she not be around for this. Kelly obliged, taking Jeannie away, leaving us to address Wendy's request for a symbolic reminder of the consequences of her actions. Once Kelly left the room with Jeannie, I addressed Wendy's request for a symbolic punishment. I delivered a firm spank, and she reacted with a start and a cry. You know I won't go easy on you, even though I love you immensely, right? I asked. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes, understanding the seriousness of the situation. I continued, each spank stronger than the last, feeling a mix of anger and responsibility. The frustration from the recent events and the tape we had heard added to the intensity of my actions. The punishment was swift and firm, continuing even after Kelly returned. Wendy was visibly in distress, trying to cover herself, while Kelly helped by holding her hands, allowing me to continue unimpeded. After a while, with my hand aching and Wendy's tears flowing, I realized the severity of the situation. Remember this lesson, I warned her sternly. She sobbed in response, acknowledging her wrongdoing and promising never to repeat her mistakes. After a few more symbolic spanks, I stopped, realizing the extent of the punishment I had administered. Wendy was visibly shaken, her skin a bright red, and she looked at Kelly, who also had tears in her eyes. Wendy's remorse was evident as she apologized and promised to remember the consequences of her actions. I leaned down to comfort her, deeply regretting the need for such a harsh response. As she lay there, seeking comfort, I reassured her, we're okay now, while gently stroking her hair. I held her as she cried, feeling the weight of what had transpired. After some time, I noticed Kelly had briefly left and returned, a silent observer to the emotionally charged moment. Kelly returned with a bottle of lotion in hand, explaining she had taken a moment to find the right thing. She carefully applied aloe lotion to Wendy's reddened skin, commenting softly on the likelihood of bruising and acknowledging the severity of the punishment. I affirmed, "This is the first and definitely the last time." Kelly responded with a half-smile, hinting that while this might have been the most severe, Wendy's spirited nature might lead to milder consequences in the future. Wendy, still in discomfort, asked if her efforts to make amends were sufficient. Kelly reassured her, expressing admiration for her action, albeit with a touch of humor regarding Gerard's willingness to pay a hefty sum for Wendy's least effort, playfully suggesting Wendy had been undervaluing herself in the past. As Wendy struggled to stand and dress, she expressed her discomfort and questioned whether my anger had fueled the intensity of the punishment. I confessed that seeing her with that contented expression, especially during the party, had deeply hurt me. Wendy, realizing the implication, was visibly upset and vehemently denied savoring those moments with others. She insisted that her thoughts were of me, recalling our intimate moments and longing for them. Her distress was evident as she desperately sought Kelly's support in affirming that our connection was unique and unmatched. The situation revealed the complex emotions and misunderstandings that had arisen from the recent events, underscoring the depth of our feelings and the need for trust and communication in our relationship. Kelly came up to me, her arms encircling my neck in a comforting embrace. "John, I believe her. You're unique, and what you have is special. I experienced it this morning, and it was unparalleled. I even shared with Wendy how grateful I was for experiencing that part of you. She's honest with you, John, especially about this." Wendy, still visibly upset, nodded vigorously in agreement. "Exactly, John. When I call you at work, telling you I can still taste you, it's true. Hours later, the memory is still vivid. That's when I have that smile. It's all about you. Please, you have to believe me." Seeing Wendy's earnest plea, I gently caressed her hair, offering reassurance. "I understand now, and I do believe you." Wendy, relieved, rested her head in my lap again. I never enjoyed those moments with them. It was about exerting control, nothing more. I urged her to stop rehashing the past. Let's not dwell on it anymore. It's behind us. Finishing my drink, I asked Wendy if her mother knew the full extent of her actions. She admitted her mother was only partially aware. Why not invite her over to share everything? I suggested. Wendy hesitated due to her discomfort. "Can we do it tomorrow? I'm not even able to sit properly." Nevertheless, I handed her the phone. Reluctantly, she made the call, inviting her mother over under the pretense of sharing good news and suggesting a sleepover for Jeannie. After the call, Wendy handed the phone back with a wry smile. "Mom's going to be quite surprised at you." The situation, while intense, ended on a note of reconciliation and understanding, with plans to involve her mother in discussing the recent events and celebrating the resolution. Kelly responded with a laugh. "I would have gone for his belt too." Wendy, however, wasn't ready to drop the subject. "Mom," Carol firmly replied, "enough, Wendy. If you say anything more to disrespect your husband or try to provoke me, I'll give you the kind of discipline your father never did. He was too lenient with you and your sister, a point I often made to him." Wendy didn't argue further and left for the bedroom, returning in a skirt for dinner with Carol. During the meal, Wendy shared the entire story with her mother, sitting on a cushion at the table. She frequently shifted uncomfortably due to the soreness. Carol listened intently, and when Wendy finished, she suggested, "Use some aloe with lidocaine tomorrow, not tonight. It'll help with the pain and is good for the skin. Normally, I'd say to just endure it, but you did something commendable, so you deserve a bit of relief." Wendy, curious, asked, "How do you know about that?" Carol blushed, then shared a personal anecdote. "After your call the other day, Ed got the story out of me. He was upset I had doubted you. We had a bit of a resolution on Sunday, and he allowed me to use aloe with lidocaine, which is rare for us." Wendy and I both looked surprised at this revelation. Carol continued, addressing me, "If you have any issue with Wendy using the lotion tomorrow, you'll have to speak to me. I can even get Ed's approval if needed." I quickly assured her that wouldn't be necessary. Carol gave a playful smile. "Well, if you change your mind or if I step out of line again, don't hesitate to let me know. We've already discussed how to handle such situations." Kelly joined in the laughter, saying, "I'll be on my best behavior." As we enjoyed our coffee, Carol seemed to prolong the conversation, perhaps to gently tease Wendy. She turned to Kelly. "So, Kelly, what's your plan now? Are you back for good?" Kelly, slightly embarrassed, glanced at me before responding. "Yes, I've moved back in. Wendy said I could stay, and we've already moved my things. I'm planning to finish my education." Carol's face lit up with joy, and she quickly got up to embrace Kelly. "We were all so worried about you. Why on earth did you think leaving was a good idea?" Kelly admitted, "I just didn't want to cause any trouble for them." Carol responded, "But they wanted you here. We all would have been devastated if something had happened to you. You should have thought of that." Kelly acknowledged, "I thought I was making the right choice." Carol then asked about how they planned to explain Kelly's presence. Wendy interjected, "She's my second cousin and our nanny, in case anyone asks." Carol laughed, "That'll certainly get the town talking. Just try to keep things low-key for a bit, okay?" The conversation left me somewhat stunned, and Kelly noticed. I hope it's okay with you, all of this happening so suddenly, she asked. I managed a nod, still processing everything. Carol then announced she was ready to see her granddaughter. Where's my little one? Wendy explained. She's in the playpen. I'll feed her before you leave. I need to pump more milk, we're running low. We gathered in the family room, Wendy sitting with our daughter, while I sat between Carol and Kelly. Kelly was more reserved than usual, perhaps conscious of the family dynamics. Despite the whirlwind of events, there was a sense of family unity in the air. Carol, sipping her wine, cozied up beside me, asking pointedly, "Are you at peace with how Wendy handled everything?" It took me a moment to realize she was referring to Wendy's retribution, not the situation with Kelly. I'm still processing it. It's challenging to let go of the anger. Part of me wanted their wives to know, especially Misty. He nearly ruined our marriage. Carol nodded thoughtfully. Exposing him might hurt Misty and their children more. Think about the wider consequences. If it leads to a breakup, the story will spread. Is that what you want? I feel torn, I admitted. If I were in Misty's place, I'd want to know the truth. Doesn't she deserve that much? I glanced at Wendy, seeking her perspective. Wendy seemed uncertain. Honestly, I don't know what's right anymore. She looked to her mother for guidance. Carol pondered for a moment. It depends on the nature of the transgression. A one-time mistake might be better left in the past. But a pattern of behavior is a different story. I agreed. Gerard and Aaron might be excusable. It was a one-off for them. But Tom, he initiated it and repeated it. He got what he deserved, while the others got off lightly. I need time to decide what to do next. Carol gently touched my arm. Let the anger cool down. See how they react to what's already happened. There's always time to act later. Kelly, becoming more relaxed, stretched out with her feet in my lap. What did you have in mind for them? I had considered some form of physical retribution, I confessed, massaging Kelly's feet. I wish I could say I'm above that, but the desire for vengeance was strong. Kelly sighed contentedly under my touch. Mom, you should try this. He's got magic hands. Carol chuckled. I doubt he'd want an old lady's feet when he's got someone like you. In a playful gesture, I reached for Carol's ankle, drawing her foot into my lap. She nearly lost her balance, spilling her wine. John, you're being ridiculous, she exclaimed with a mix of surprise and laughter. As I massaged Carol's foot, she relaxed into the moment. Despite her initial hesitation, she eventually settled, allowing both feet to be in my care. This is unusual for you, John, she remarked, a note of curiosity in her voice. I took the opportunity to address a misunderstanding. Wendy mentioned she was surprised I suggested she talk to you. She assumed I didn't like you. Carol took a moment to reflect. I had the same impression about you. I've never really given you much reason to like me, have I? I shared my perspective. It wasn't about not liking you. I just felt you and Ed never really gave me a chance. It seemed like you were judging me from the start, which was frustrating. She listened as I alternated between her feet and Kelly's. Our reaction was more about being protective of Wendy. She was young, and you were very serious. We were just being cautious because we didn't know you. I nodded in understanding. Carol sighed. Looking back, maybe we've held on to those initial impressions for too long. Ed has warmed up to you, in his own way. She playfully nudged me with her foot. I appreciate you reaching out to me during the recent troubles. That was unexpected and meaningful. I expressed my trust in her influence and love for her family. You have a strong bond with Wendy and Jeannie. I knew your guidance would be valuable. Kelly, playful as ever, gently nudged her foot against mine. Mom's been a big help, she added. I never doubted Carol's dedication to our family, I said, reaffirming my respect for her. Carol then moved in closer, wrapping her arms around my neck, and gave me a warm kiss on the cheek. Thank you, John. It means a lot. Wendy approached with Jeannie, indicating feeding time was over. Now, Mom, remember, John's mine. You and Kelly helped me realize that. I don't want to have to bring Dad into this. Carol, taking Jeannie into her arms, replied playfully, complained to Ed. About what? I'm behaving. Can't I give a thank you kiss to my favorite son-in-law? Wendy responded with a light-hearted tone. A kiss is fine, just don't go any further. Carol's cheeks tinged with color. I wouldn't dream of overstepping. I might be a flirt, but I'm not about to encourage cheating. Wendy, however, seemed taken aback by the comment. It's a bit harsh, Mom. If we're going to move past Wendy's mistakes, we can't keep bringing them up. Carol paused, then softened her stance. You're right. I apologize, Wendy. She then joked about her own behavior. Should I warn Ed about possible punishment from you? I chuckled, wrapping an arm around her. Not today, but consider that a warning. Carol stood up, still smiling. I'll let Ed know just in case. She then turned to Wendy. Sorry, dear. We still need to talk about Alice. Have you heard from her? Wendy shook her head. She's left some messages. Carol advised, don't rush into contacting her. Let's get Jeannie's things. After they left, Kelly quickly filled the space in my lap. Wendy and her mom have a strong bond, even if Carol's still upset. I agreed, noting the closeness between Wendy and her mother. If Wendy had confided more in her mom and less in Alice, things might have been different. Kelly cuddled up to me, but then I wouldn't be here. It's a bit selfish, but I'm glad for how things turned out. I gave her a reassuring hug. Sometimes, being a little selfish works out. I stood to see them off, giving Jeannie and Carol each a goodbye kiss. "Thanks for everything," I said to Carol. "That's what family is for," she replied with a smile. "Enjoy yourselves. And remember, don't do anything I wouldn't do." I laughed. "Does that rule out much?" Her laughter echoed as they left, marking the end of an eventful day and a reminder of the importance of family ties and understanding. Carol replied with a playful smile, "I'll keep it a secret." After a warm embrace with Wendy, they parted ways. Wendy then gave me a loving hug and kiss by the door before leading me back to our bedroom. She asked Kelly for some privacy, to which Kelly cheerfully agreed, offering to tidy up. Once in our room, Wendy began to undress, inviting me to join her. We were soon in bed together, sharing an intimate embrace. "You're not upset, are you, about not discussing Kelly staying with us first?" she asked. "No, I'm not mad, just a bit surprised. I would have appreciated being part of the decision," I admitted. Wendy explained her reasoning, mentioning Kelly's probation constraints and the condition of her previous living situation. I realized she needed to stay with us. Then it was just figuring out how to explain her presence to others. I reassured her, "I understand. We have the space, and it's fine." Wendy then mentioned giving Kelly the guest room and her desire for Kelly to sometimes stay in our room for support and comfort. "She's going through a lot and needs affection, but I don't want anything beyond the occasional support from you, okay?" I agreed, affirming my commitment to Wendy. "You're all I need, always have been." Wendy then set some boundaries. "Hugs, kisses, and comfort are fine. Anything more intimate only with my consent. Is that clear?" "Completely clear," I assured her. She seemed satisfied with my response. "Just remember, anything more serious is off limits. Kelly's not in a place where that would be healthy for her." The conversation underscored the complexity of our new living arrangement. But it was clear that Wendy's priority was ensuring both Kelly's well-being and the integrity of our relationship. We shifted to a more serious note. "Why are we even discussing this? I have no need for anyone else. Keeping up with you is all I'm focused on," I said, half-jokingly. Wendy, maintaining her playful mood, continued to focus on me. "Kelly might feel like she owes us something for all the help we're providing. She's used to compensating with favors." "I understand. No need for any repayments like that," I assured her. She nodded in agreement, then dedicated herself to making me feel good. I watched, admiring her devotion. I noticed she was careful to keep her weight off her tender backside. Suddenly, Kelly appeared, heading for another bath. Just passing through for the tub, she called out. Wendy didn't pause in her attentions, fully committed to bringing me pleasure. After starting her bath, Kelly returned and curled up next to me, enjoying the view. "Is it okay if I join? I find it fascinating." I didn't mind, and Wendy signaled her okay without interrupting her focus. Kelly snuggled against me, seeking comfort. "You're sure it's okay for me to stay?" "I'd be upset if you left," I reassured her, offering a gentle kiss on her head. She expressed her intent to not be a burden. "I'll help however I can. I don't want to cause any issues." I hugged her. "Just focus on being happy and let us know what you need." As Wendy continued, I surrendered to the moment. She expertly brought me to climax, playfully allowing my release to spill as she cleaned up with affectionate licks and kisses. She glanced at Kelly, offering her a chance to join, but Kelly declined, content to observe. This intimate moment highlighted the intricate dynamics and deep understanding within our unique household. Wendy responded to Kelly's departure with a smile. "I'll take care of him, don't worry," she assured Kelly as she hugged her from behind. After a few more playful moments, Wendy rejoined me, nestling into my embrace. "Do you really love me?" she asked, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. "Of course, I do. More with each passing day," I reassured her. She pressed her lips to my shoulder. "I love hearing you say it. You've been a bit quiet with those words recently, and they mean a lot to me." I reflected on her words and realized she was right. I'll make sure to express it more. Being open about our needs is important. If I ever forget to tell you how much you mean to me, remind me. "You're my world, Wendy." She hugged me tighter, whispering, "And you are mine." Wendy then playfully suggested we go for another round. As we shifted positions, with Wendy straddling my face, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Not about her, but about my own skills. Despite my efforts, I noticed that Wendy didn't always seem as overwhelmed by my attempts at oral pleasure as I hoped. It puzzled me, considering her evident enjoyment and ease reaching climax through other means. Was I lacking in technique? The thought nagged at me, contrasting sharply with Wendy's proficiency and enthusiasm. Wendy seemed to appreciate my efforts, responding with soft noises and encouraging movements. Yet, I couldn't help feeling that my performance wasn't quite as impactful as I had imagined it should be. Perhaps my expectations had been skewed by unrealistic portrayals. As I continued, I gently pulled her closer, being mindful of her sensitivities. "Careful, my backside's still tender," she reminded me softly. I shifted my touch to her hips, being more cautious and attentive. Despite my previous experiences with Kelly, where I felt more confident, with Wendy, I was questioning my abilities. These thoughts were distracting me, stirring up insecurities. Was I not fulfilling her needs? Had my shortcomings driven her to seek satisfaction elsewhere? I pondered over these doubts, even as Wendy continued her devoted attention, reigniting my arousal. Wendy then shifted her position, asking if she could be on top. Of course, I responded. She expressed her desire with a kiss. I really need this. I played along with Wendy's mood, lightly spanking her. You're quite the troublemaker, aren't you? I teased, balancing firmness with gentleness. She responded with a mix of pleasure and remorse. Sorry, she murmured. I continued, assertively but with care. Remember, you belong to me. Another soft spank emphasized my words. Only yours, Wendy gasped, her voice filled with a blend of excitement and submission. I continued the role play. No more mistakes like that, okay? Wendy's response was shaky, her emotions palpable. Never again. I then gently reminded her of the situation with Kelly, still keeping my tone light. I held her close, moving in harmony with her. As our passion escalated, Wendy responded intensely, her emotions spilling over. It was clear she was deeply affected. After reaching a peak, she collapsed onto me, tears mingling with her breathless apologies. I softly caressed her, reassuring her with words of love and forgiveness. I love you, always, I whispered, comforting her with tender kisses. She sought forgiveness through her affectionate gestures. I love you so much, John. Why are you so forgiving? I laughed warmly, holding her close. You're not a mess up. We all make mistakes. It's about moving forward together. You're everything to me, and as long as you want me, we'll face everything as one. Our exchange, filled with both intensity and tenderness, underscored the deep love and understanding we shared, solidifying our commitment to each other and to moving past the challenges we had faced. As long as you'll have me. Wendy laughed, her eyes twinkling. What about forever? I returned her laughter with a tender kiss. Forever sounds just right. I'm indeed the luckiest guy. She beamed with joy. As long as you agree that I'm the luckiest girl. As I continued to caress her, I saw her smile grow. We're definitely the luckiest couple, then, I affirmed. Wendy playfully asked, You really love being with me, don't you? I responded with a hint of mischief. Isn't it obvious? She then became more serious, seeking reassurance. Am I a good lover, John? Beyond what you've mentioned, I mean. Am I enough? Her question took me by surprise. Why would you doubt that? You're amazing, Wendy. I could never tire of you. I felt a twinge of vulnerability. But what about me? Do I satisfy you? Her laughter was warm and genuine. After everything, you're incredible, John. I couldn't dream of better. I hesitated before asking about my skills in pleasing her orally, expressing my insecurity. You're wonderful, she reassured me, but you rarely seem to reach climax that way. Does it take too long? Am I doing something wrong? I asked softly. She looked at me, a mix of surprise and concern in her eyes. Why would you think that? You're amazing at it. My uncertainty caused me to pause, and I realized I had stopped moving entirely. Wendy's expression turned to worry. Where are these doubts coming from? How long have you been feeling this way? She moved closer, seeking to comfort me. In this moment of vulnerability, we both realized the importance of open communication and reassurance in our relationship. It was a reminder that understanding and validating each other's feelings were crucial to maintaining the intimacy and strength of our bond. As I tried to articulate my insecurities, Wendy looked at me with a mix of fear and sadness in her eyes, tears beginning to form. John, this isn't about you. You're everything I've ever wanted, and you're an incredible partner. My actions weren't a reflection of you or your love. Her emotional response grew more intense, and she held me tightly, her sobs deepening. I've caused so much pain. What have I done? I tried to console her. It's okay, Wendy. I trust and believe in you. I just want to ensure our happiness, to be the best for you. My words seemed to make her even more upset, and she curled into herself, crying harder. Kelly, fresh from her bath, assessed the situation and climbed onto the bed. She wrapped her arms around Wendy from behind, offering silent support. As Wendy turned to embrace Kelly, her anguish was palpable. I've messed up everything. I wish I could take it all back. Kelly gently stroked Wendy's hair, comforting her. You haven't ruined anything. We're healing, we just need time. Feeling helpless, I could only offer a shrug when Kelly looked to me for answers. I then wrapped my arms around both of them, trying to provide comfort. We're going to get through this, I reassured Wendy. Our love will see us through. The three of us stayed like that for a while, offering Wendy the comfort she needed through our presence and gentle caresses. The night was challenging, and I knew we might face more tough times ahead. But I remained confident in our resilience and the strength of our relationship. As I turned off the lights and adjusted the sheets, I pulled Wendy close, letting her tears fall against me, reaffirming my unwavering love for her. Kelly stayed with us, silently offering her own kind of support, her touch conveying care and solidarity. In that moment, her presence was a quiet but significant comfort to us both. My comment, are these women going crazy or not? Sometimes people do not believe these are real situations and the final ending will come tomorrow morning.